So you were making more revenue in your coaching or service business, but somehow you were keeping less profit, less and less every year that you go on, the more that you drive up your revenue. Let's talk about why. So your revenue's up, but your margin's down. Not the way we want those numbers to go. So the instinct is, the answer to that usually is, oh, well, I'm just going to go out and close more clients. Easy, done, problem solved, more money in. But that's not what actually happens. Here's what actually happens. More clients means more acquisition cost and more fulfillment cost. And if the client isn't worth more than both of those combined, you are paying to grow. But also, if the client does not incrementally become more valuable than both of those combined, as the time goes on, as you work with them longer, it's also staying stuck on what I like to call this high ticket hamster wheel. So, as we said, this is the high ticket hamster wheel. You know this feeling. Having to spend more and more and more time and effort and money to acquire new clients, all for them just to not stay, not refer, not upsell into another offer to make them worth more to you than whatever they paid you up front, leaving you with no other choice but to find more clients. It's this hamster wheel that will also get smaller and smaller and smaller as time goes on. And it's not just spinning, it's shrinking, because again, your margin is collapsing. The economics of the business after you reach about 1 to 3 million a year tend to get really difficult if you don't have a way to make your clients more valuable, more profitable to your business as you work with them, as you continue to grow both top line and bottom line. So let's talk a little bit about why it shrinks. First, your customer acquisition cost goes up. Every new client costs more to acquire than the last. Basic business. Your margin goes down. Every new client keeps less after fulfillment. 3, your volume goes up. More clients are needed just to hit the same number. So you were running faster and you were making less. That's why the hamster wheel shrinks. So what's really causing this? The root cause of all of this is that there is only one revenue event per client. It's what they pay upfront to come into your offer, start working with you as a service, whatever it is. They pay and that's it. And everything else walks out the door with them. Two concepts that we don't talk about enough in coaching service-based businesses are, number one, a difference between quality revenue and quantity of revenue. We talk about quantity of revenue all the time. We don't talk about quality of revenue. And that's really what I want to do in this video. The second thing that we don't talk about is the idea that a client should be giving us something too. And I don't mean in terms of they give us a testimonial. For every unit of effort that we put into working with a client, we should be getting something out of that as well. Whether that's a valuable insight, something as simple, easy to understand as that. Whether it's they're upselling into something else. Whether it's making our processes, our program, our operations smoother. We should have systems in place that we're always getting these insights, garnering these insights from our work with clients. But again, we're so busy building the marketing, the sales, and the front end that it's really difficult to do this on the back at scale. So I get it, not shaming anybody, but if you're doing above 1 to 3 million in a coaching or service business, it's time to start thinking about this stuff. So again, the problem is there's only one revenue event. And the only way to grow when every client is worth only what they paid up front is to close more clients. That's the only arrow in your quiver. So the full kind of chain of events is that there's one revenue event per client. Volume is the only lever you have to grow. Volume eats your margin, the more volume you get, and then the wheel gets smaller. So what is the alternative? Again, as I said, not all revenue is good revenue. Some revenue compounds, some revenue costs you. So what's the difference? First off, let's say with 2 clients. We've got a high ticket client, and then we've what we'll call the compounding client. Very different experiences, very different LTV, very different cost to acquire, all that good stuff. So let's get into it. First off, the high ticket client, let's say they paid $25K. Love seeing a Slack notification saying, cool, new client closed for $25K. The delivery is, let's say that they have, it's constant founder involvement. We all know these types of clients. Every escalation lands on the founder, lands on the CS lead personally. What does that mean? The relationship is really, really rocky. They've threatened chargebacks, they've threatened refund requests, and there's been hours managing it both times. I'm not saying every client is like this, but more than we would like sometimes are like this. Then on the exit, they send no referrals. They send you no testimonial. They don't upsell into anything else. They paid $25K, but they cost significantly more than the average client. And even one note on this too is even average clients, even clients that don't, make a lot of noise, threaten chargebacks, refunds, whatever. Those are still, but don't refer, give you a great testimonial or upsell into something else or all 3 of those. They're still costing you because again, the clients that just you churn and burn through that don't give you anything back because of the great experience that you've given them Every one of those that you close costs you incrementally more. So let's talk about the compounding client. Let's just for sake of math's sake, let's say they pay 15K. So smaller than 25K. Looks smaller on the dashboard, but for the delivery, they did the work and they got the result. There was almost no founder time in the client delivery, client success, ran the relationship. Now, I don't want this to say, oh, I charge them less and then it's going to be no issue. That's not the point of this. The point of this is that regardless of the amount you charge them 15K, you charge them 150K. I don't care. The point is you sought out and you vetted the person in your marketing and sales and onboarding who is the type of person who is going to get the best results. You have a clear track record of knowing exactly who those fantastic clients are that are going to give you the discretionary effort to get the results. They're not the people no-showing calls that your closers have to then go and chase and use all the fancy ways to handle a no-show call objection that we all see on Instagram. They're not the people that are coming on the call and saying, by the time you pitch the price, they're saying, oh wow, okay, it's a lot more than I was, whatever, I've only got, this amount in the bank and I get paid next week, whatever. It's not those people. It's not the people that your closers need to spend an extra half hour on the call with, cycling through all these, I'll just be completely honest, personal opinion here, manipulative objection handling tactics that are all about getting the prospect into this fantasy or this version of themselves that takes the next step. All of that brings you low quality clients. All of that brings you clients that do not refer, do not ascend, do not upsell into anything else, do not continue, do not give you a testimonial, and they're pain in the butt clients to work with, and they take a drag on all of your resources. A program filled with clients like that will have the lowest LTV of any program out there. So you want to make sure that you are vetting specifically for people who will do the work and who will put in the discretionary effort to get the results, because there is no such thing as a completely done for you offer. Sorry to burst your bubble. The payoff of this is that they sent 2 referrals and both closed with 0 customer acquisition cost. So instead of 25K for a pain in the butt client, you actually only have to close, really in essence, 1 client at a way lower price point to get almost double, 45K, almost double what you got for the initial client, just because you vetted them to know who to bring in, how to qualify them, who would be the best suited to put in the work to get the results. And then they bought the next offer, and then the testimonial assisted to close 3 more. So you see what I'm saying? You bring in a client and it multiplies. And it also happens the other way. You bring in a really crappy client, that also multiplies because it hurts client culture. It makes it really difficult to get a great testimonial that will attract the right type of client, because all this client is good for is a testimonial where they're just coached or coerced into saying nice things about you because they don't really believe it. So either way, it multiplies. And then the comparison, of course, is you have 25K in, but there's the significant cost out, and there's nothing left behind. Again, you are not getting anything from them. So they're paid more, but they're worth less. The other side of things, they paid less, but they are worth so much more. Which one actually made you more money? So then what will make a client compound? 1 is a result that makes them want to tell people about it. 2 is delivery cost low enough that margin survives it at scale. This is really, really easy to do these days with AI and with a CS team that is trained to always be on the lookout for opportunities to ask for referrals and to upsell. And 3 is a design path to say, refer, and go deeper. So what makes revenue so costly? On the other side of things, when it's sold to somebody who was never a strong fit, who needed to be this other version of themselves in the sales call, or really be dragged across the finish line to become a member of this service or offer. A promise that that delivery couldn't match. I'm sorry, but if you outsource your closing, this is something that I see all the time in the teams that I work with. Even if you have an internal closing team person, whoever, when the delivery, it's the simplest way to explain this, what I do. When the delivery does not match the promise, you will always have a client that has lower LTV than the rest. When delivery matches the promise, you will always have a net neutral LTV. When delivery exceeds the promise, you will always have a net positive LTV. That's it. And then the third thing is there's no backend, which means when they leave, everything leaves. All the potential of revenue that they could have brought you leaves. And again, they're not bad clients. It's just predictable outcomes of a broken system. They might be a great client for somebody else, but they're not a good client for you. So how do we start to work through this? First question, what does the client actually cost to acquire, to fulfill, and keep? Not just what they paid, but what they actually cost. What is your net profit after everything's said and done? 2, what does a client leave behind when they go? Did they refer anybody? Did they buy anything else? Did they say anything that closed another client? So instead of chasing top line, focus on margin. And that's so much easier said than done. I get it. But when volume is the only lever, your margin keeps shrinking, the wheel keeps getting smaller and smaller, you have a business that will not compound. You have a business that will not get easier with scale. That's what I do. I make people's businesses easier to scale as they grow. The other way you could do it is you could build margin. every client is worth more. Customer acquisition cost goes down over time, and the wheel gets bigger and easier to stay on. Same business, but completely different trajectory. So the goal at the end of the day is not more revenue. It is better revenue. So what I would encourage you to do is start thinking about, for every client that you close, every person that you bring into your business, did I bring them in because I was focused on a quantity of revenue, or did I bring them in because I was focused on a quality of revenue? And this revenue that I'm bringing in, is it going to make acquiring other revenue easier, or is it going to make acquiring other revenue more difficult? Either by not giving a great testimonial, not referring anybody, or just being a problem client that it sucks out your resources. Because the more clients that you bring in, the more volume you have in your business of clients that are not a good fit, the less likely it is that you will find and attract the ones who are, that will make scaling so much easier.